fluctuating currency values. Here you see a picture of the board that's out there. You can see really the bank buy notes as you go through, the sell notes. So you see a lot of that different kind of action as you go through. And it really does help to define as you go through. Here's this in action. Let's pretend, and I'm going to use extreme numbers as you go here, as you go through. You'll also see something similar in the text as you go through. You negotiate a contract, you're going to buy this for $100,000. You put your career in the line that this product's going to really help save your company as you go through. So at the time of signing, the US dollar, when it comes down to euro, that's a euro sign in front of the one there, is the equivalent of 88.95 cents, or about 89 cents. So for every US dollar, it's worth 89 cents and compared to the euro as you go through. Finally, after lots of delays as you go through, all of a sudden the fluctuation rate is 50%. Now, by the way, it'll probably never be 50%, but this is an illustration. It may be only 10%, regardless. That 10% could be, oh wait, that could be your annual bonus as you go through. US dollar now is here, and all of a sudden now, oh no, it's gone up 50%. And all of a sudden now, your $100,000 order cost your company $161,050 as you go through. Oh my gosh, you are doomed, because the boss sits there and says, you've been working underneath a budget and you blew it. Not only did you blow it, you really blew it, and you're fired. Get home on your own. I don't care how you go about it. You've got to swim across the Atlantic or not. And I hear there's sharks that hope to catch you. Who knows? In the process, hopefully the boss isn't that nasty. If it is, you should quit now before the sharks do eat you as you go through. So in the process, though, you can see that this is an extreme case, but the reality is it could go up 5%. It can go down 5%. Your $100,000 purchase over here may not be $100,000 when you receive the product 4 months later as you go through. It may cost you more, it may cost you less. Either way, either you're a dog or you're a hero. Although I think most dogs are heroes anyway. So anyway, that process you go through, the exchange rate quotations in the FX market, really it's a reciprocal currency. You're looking at pairs as you go through the whole time. There's a thing called the spot rate, is the exchange rate between the two currencies for delivery within 2 business days as you go through. You call that the spot rate in the process as you go through. And really, you'll see currency markets are deliverable in 30, 60, 90, 180 days in the future as you go through. So so you really calculate that between the two currencies for delivery as you go through. There's a bid price, in other words, the highest buy order currently on the market, and there's the ask price. So bid and ask, usually there's a range between them. Sometimes it can be kind of extreme as you go through. If you're interested, I recommend you go online. Don't spend your money right away. Go online, watch what it is, what's going on in the FX market, the exchange rate market as you go through, and see what's happening. Get yourself a spreadsheet and then track on a daily basis to see how it goes. If it's really interesting to you, feel free to dive in and make lots of money. If you do, by the way, we also have the IBC College Foundation Fund as you go through. Here are some definitions to sit down and know for not only for the test coming up, but also for your own personal things. Monetary policies, it controls the amount of money in circulation and its growth rate as you go through. So government will sit down there and determine how much money it prints, puts into circulation, and the growth rate. The fiscal policies it really addresses the collecting and spending of money by the government. So what monetary is about what's printed and what's put in circulation, and fiscal is how the government collects and spends money as you go through. There's also a law of one price concept. Really, it's about an efficient markets. Like prices will have like products as you go through. So, and then you have the thing called arbitrage. You'll hear it in different terminologies. In this case, we're talking about arbitrage as the aspect of buying and selling instantly to make profit with no risk. I'll buy the store and you sell it almost instantaneously at the same time. And pretty much when it comes to arbitrage, the market always moves to close all gaps. Somebody's going to sit down and boom, I see an opening here. I'm going to get this over here, this dollar over here. I'm going to buy so much of the Egyptian pound. I'm going to buy so much of really the British pound sterling as you go through. You grab it and you sell it instantly over here in another market. You make a fortune in the process. The Fisher effect really talks about the relation between real and nominal interest rates as you go through. So the interest rate in the US, for example, is 5%. In the European Union, it's 3%. And what's going to happen is by the time you're all done, the US dollar will decrease against the euro by 2%. So you're looking at the aspect of the fishery effect. It shows what's going to happen long term, typically less than a year, actually within a few months, usually as you go through. The international says the interest rate differentials of two currencies is going to reflect the expected change in the exchange rates as you go through. Now, purchasing power parity, PPP, is the amount of adjustment that's made between the exchange rates of two currencies to have the equivalent purchasing power. It's easy to read here, but let me give you the example as you go through. And the example is a Big Mac. Now, by the way, I don't eat Big Macs. I prefer In-N-Out Burger. But that being said, purchasing parity, by the time you're all done, you go through country A, and this is what a Big Mac costs over here. You go to country B and the Big Mac costs over here. Really, you're looking at how much power does my money carry in currency to purchase goods for use by me, okay, or by my company as you go through. Let's take it out of the Big Mac world and let's put it into, I need to buy a press that will sit down there and press fenders for my car I'm coming out with, because I'm going to have the next electric vehicle out there and I want to see what's going to cost. So first of all, you go to the United States. Okay, so boom, for me to buy this press over here is going to cost me $175,000 to have it over here. I'm going to go over to Mexico. Okay, in Mexico, I can sit down there and use the same equivalent dollars in Mexican pesos as you go through, and I'm going to get it for $130,000. Well, let me go check out Bangladesh. So I go over to Bangladesh. I got to sit down there and do a couple things. I'm going to buy the press over there. I got to figure out where I'm going to use the press. Am I going to use it in Bangladesh, establish a factory there? I'm going to ship it back over here. But you really want to have your plant in the United States. So you end up, by the time it's all done, you can buy the exact same press between the US for 175, Mexico, and then another in Bangladesh, and they'll sit down there and sell it to you for $74,000. But you got to take the shipping costs, everything else. So by the time you're all done with shipping, inspectors, and the whole process, it's going to cost you another $20,000. But still, it's less than Mexico and it's less than the US. So that would be purchasing power parity. So maybe you're going to buy it from Bangladesh in the process. It really is about the power of your ability to purchase something. PPP, purchasing power parity, as you go through. Exchange rate forecasting as you go through. You want to sit down. It's an efficient market approach and just assume that the market prices, they're going to reflect all relevant information. Sometimes they don't really. There could be secret things that may happen and boom, all of a sudden the big transaction system takes place and it affects the entire market and rocks it. But pretty much the market is going to stabilize itself because people are always watching, always investing, always looking to sit down there and grab a little extra profit as you go through. So you have that aspect of it. And there's a random walk hypothesis. In other words, the unpredictability of factors suggests the best predictor of tomorrow's prices is today's prices. So if today's prices are over here, then you're going through tomorrow making the assumption the world is still here and hasn't been rocked by cataclysmic earthquakes, tidal waves, typhoons, or whatever. So you make that assumption, but it may not always hold true because those things do happen occasionally as you go through. So the fundamental approach is based on ecocentric models that go through to capture all the different variables in the process, and then you sit down and you're going to forecast them. And sometimes you'll have different levels you go through. Here's the expected, here's an extreme and high and extreme low. Sometimes my preference when you're looking at any kind of forecast is you have an expected, then you have a high and a low in the process. And that way you're prepared for all three different variables because you really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yes, there could be a cataclysmic 8.0 earthquake that rocks an entire country and everything else. Those things do happen. When that happens, you're going to be shocked by it, but at least you'll have some kind of plan ahead of time before it happens as you go through. So sometimes the analyst, you always want to sit down there and pay attention to your analyst. And a lot of times your analyst, my experience has been most analysts always sit there and predict doom and gloom. And sometimes they're right, unfortunately. So make certain you have two analysts, one's happy and one's sad in the process as you go through. You're always better off having three, in my opinion. Anyway, so know the concept of spot rate. It's 2 or 3 day execution. Bid and ask prices, they're going to have a range every single day. What monetary policies are, okay, how much money is printed in a lot of circulation. fiscal policies as to the government control of buying and selling as you go through, and the law of one price, and then also the concept of arbitrage as you go through. That'll help you define floating, fluctuating currency values in the international monetary funds. Take care.